All right, let's talk some underrated drafts. You might notice a trend in doing this because what I want to do here with the underrated drafts is I'm simply saying, well, how good of a job did you do given the draft capital that you had? That's not necessarily who got the best players. There was no chance that the Raiders were going to end up with more players than, say, the New York Giants. However, I think the Raiders did a better job of maximizing their talent, and that's why I have them as one of my 7 teams in no particular order that was on the all underrated draft. They got I retweeted someone posted, they got a bunch of different draft grades together and just compiled them all together. The Raiders ended up 23rd on that list, which to me feels crazy. I feel like they did a way better job than that. Dylan Parham is an interesting guy where you're kind of buying low on him, and I could see him ending up being a starting caliber offensive lineman perhaps. Zamir White, listen, I don't love drafting running backs, but at pick 122, it's not the end of the world to do that, and they could use a back. And again, you're trying to be competitive now, and that's always the one way I'll defend it a little bit more. And then also Neil Farrell Jr., I just think could be a really awesome player. Like, again, these good run-stopping defensive linemen, especially as teams play more and more two safety deep coverages, become more important. So someone like Farrell, who could be a good run stopper, I like that pick a lot, and at pick 126, that's great value. So they didn't have a ton of draft capital, but they make the list due to them, doing a better job with that draft capital. And again, we're going to start to see a trend because I feel like a lot of guys who fall, teams that fall in this and teams that make this list didn't have first round picks. In fact, I believe only one team does have a first round pick that made this list. The Colts finished 12th on that list, which is pretty good, but I still have them on this underrated list because I had them as one of the 7 winners of the draft. So to me, that's better than top 12, of course, for all you math fans out there. Alec Pierce is someone who I am very high on. I think Alec Pierce, I've said this when I made my top 7 best draft video. Alec Pierce and Bernard Raymond, I had first-round grades on both of those guys. So this is a team that did not have a first-round pick and still got, in my opinion, 2 players that are first-round talents, and still guys like Jelani Woods, who I think is quality, and again, several other players who could potentially be solid. So that's why I have them here. Let's go to the Denver Broncos as well, another team without a first-round selection. They were 18th on the rankings here, so people felt like they did an okay job, but I felt like they did better. I mean, listen, Nick Bonino is not someone who I am banging the table for and saying this guy will be awesome. There are people who are banging the table for Nick Bonino that he could be awesome. I mean, he was someone who was a guy who got a ton of pressure. Like, he got a ton of production. Now, my issue with his production is I just don't know how much of that is going to translate to the NFL level. I just don't. But given the fact that you got him, I feel like you did such a good job with Nick Bonino in terms of like getting him later on in the draft is what I'm trying to say. That's kind of why I like this selection of it. It's good value. That's what I'm trying to say. It took me a minute to get to that. Good value for Nick Bonino. He could be successful. If not, you burned the 64th pick on fire. Not the end of the world. And also Greg Dulcich, I think, is a really good player who will come in day one and be a solid contributor to the Broncos. So again, it's not that they were like lighting the world on fire or anything, but I think they did a better job than people realized. They had a pretty solid draft, still got a ton of other picks. I mean, they got 7 other draft picks other than Bonino and Dulcich. So despite not having a first round pick, they had more than the average team has. The average team has 8 picks because of comp picks. It's like 8.1 is the average team. What the average team picks, they had more than that despite not having a first rounder because, again, they did get rid of Devon Miller trade helped them, and so they got some talented players there. So not the best draft in the world, but still I think an underrated draft because, again, there's a difference between best drafts and most underrated. Another one that I am putting here is the Rams. The Rams with an underrated draft. They were 31st on that board, which I just don't understand whatsoever. How could they be 31st? Like, they didn't even have any draft picks to screw up. How could you put them at 31? And I still thought that they had some interesting players. Like, I think Jacoby Durant is a fascinating guy. Yes, he's undersized, but the Rams don't care about that stuff. If they think you can play, they will draft you. Kyron Williams, another guy who could help. So it's not so much that I love this draft or anything, but I just think 31st, it's like you only put it here because they had no draft picks. And I feel the same way about the Dolphins, who are another one of these teams that I have on this list of, like, so the Dolphins ended up at 30th on that board. And I'm just like, how? Like, they had no top 100 picks, and they still got Channing Tindall, who you can make the argument was the best linebacker at Georgia, where they had even though they had a first round and third round player at the linebacker position, he was maybe better than both of them at the college level. He was certainly better than Quay Walker was at the college level, and they got him at pick 102. Like, that's great value. And again, they got Tyreek Hill, who, that's not included in any of this, but obviously they only had 4 draft picks, so like there's only so much you can do. But I thought they still maximized the small amount of capital that they had pretty well. Didn't love their other 3 picks as much, so maybe that's why they fell as well. But hey, I'm not really going to be that upset about you reaching a little bit with pick 125. They did a good job with one of their picks, so I think that's alone puts them better than where they're at. Another team I have here is going to be the Chicago Bears. So the Bears, listen, I have some criticisms about the Bears as well, right? They did not help out Justin Fields, with the exception of drafting Velus Jones with pick 71, and that certainly felt like a reach at the time. So the Bears finished 29th on that big board, which I just think is too low, and that's kind of my thing is Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker are good players, and they're going to help out this football team. The issue with the Bears is that they didn't help out Justin Fields, but that's not just a draft thing. You shouldn't solely rely on the draft to say, well, we have to help out our young quarterback now. If you can, do it, like the Jets could, but the Jets were in position to do it. Like the Jaguars didn't help out Trevor Lawrence in the draft too much either, but they helped him out through free agency. The Bears should have helped out Fields through free agency, so they didn't have to rely on the draft. But now that they didn't do it, well, now you have to, use the picks to maximize your talent. And Kyler Gordon, I think, will be really good for them. And Jaquan Brisker, I think, will be really good for them. And they needed secondary players. So that's why I think it's underrated. Again, you could argue, well, how good is it? I think it's better than the 4th worst draft in football. I think that's just outrageous. I don't think it was anywhere near that poor. So that's why I have it here. And finally, the one team that had a first-round pick that I still put here, and they were pretty high on the list. The Falcons were tied for 9th, but I still have them as an underrated team, and come to think of it, I didn't put them as a top 7 winner, so maybe they're not that underrated. But I feel there are some people who are kind of, here's what I think. I probably should have had them as a top 10 winner, because that's what I'm realizing now, is just because getting Desmond Ridder at 74 means so much to this team. You have a chance with a quarterback who could be good, and if he is good, awesome. If he's not, you don't have to spend that much. You don't have to completely justify moving off of him. Like, that's not a hot take. You can just move off of him next year and just draft someone else and maybe, keep him as a backup in case something else happens. Because, again, next year's supposed to be this great draft class. And look at who they got. I think Drake London could be an A.J. Brown type of kind of that slot guy who can run over the middle and be effective there. He can win on the outside largely due to footwork is the main way he does it. Footwork and route running is kind of his thing. I think he'll fit that Arthur Smith offense well. Arnold Ebiketie, I had as a fringe top 20 pick. He goes here at 38, so you're getting great talent there. Troy Anderson made my top 5 linebackers list as someone who's still learning how to play football, basically. He, just started playing linebacker and has so much talent. And Tyler Algier at pick 151, I had as a top 5 running back. So they got a lot of players who I really like and still got a quarterback and didn't have to give up a ton of draft capital to do it. So all of that stuff, this is one of the best draft classes they had, that was there, quite frankly. So that's kind of why I decided to put it in the underrated list. So yeah, that's kind of what I think. And they're so underrated, I didn't even put them in my top 7 winners. So what am I doing here? I guess that still could work if I felt like they were 8th. No, it wouldn't work because they were tied for 9th. So that was my bad. But definitely a very underrated draft, in my opinion, and a team that I thought did a great job. So that's what I think. What do you guys think? What were your thoughts on, is there any underrated team I did not mention? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.